I'm going to show you how great I am.
So this last level of motivation, I'm going to start off by explaining to you by talking about another role model of mine named Wim Hof. Wim Hof is a man who has learned how to basically swim in ice water or even hike up huge mountains that are freezing cold in his underwear. This guy has taken his potential to levels that are superhuman, and it's actually got me into doing things like cold plunge or super hot sauna. I do Russian banya. I think that's an incredibly powerful tool for learning to master your mind, by the way. I'm addicted to it. It saved my life. And his story is one that I personally connect with very deeply. So my understanding, I might get this wrong, is that Wim Hof had to endure his wife committing suicide. And what I've seen is that sometimes in life, your life will become so painful that you can't make any meaning of it anymore. You can't make any meaning. Your heart has been so drained that there's nothing left to pull you forward. There's just nothing. And in that moment where there's nothing left because you've maybe lost someone, you've had your heart broken in ways that you never thought could have been possible, and dreams and hopes that you had in your life are clearly not going to come to fruition, there's a final way that you can make this make sense and tap into a motivation that is beyond superhuman. But I don't recommend this for anybody else or for most people. What can happen at a certain point is that you can move on. You just move on. And essentially you die before you die. And you allow presence, that energy of being present to the moment, to inhabit you. You don't think a lot anymore. You're present. You're aware. And in that you find peace. What happens is that the thinking mind, to be in it, becomes too painful to bear because you've just seen too many things go wrong. And so for a typical person that would be motivated by making some money or doing a cool trip or getting some cool clothes or whatever, that just doesn't do anything for you anymore because the story in your mind of your life just isn't panning out. And no matter what cool things that you'd accomplish in your life that you'd get, it really couldn't tilt the seesaw compared to the horrific things that have happened to you. Now, if you want, I could maybe talk to you in person about things that I've been through, and I could talk to you, maybe I'll do other videos on that at some point, but I don't really want to get hung up in that. But what I want to leave you with is this idea that in that moment where the typical average day-to-day things can no longer motivate you, what you can do is die before you die, which means that you're still here, but that part of you that you see in other people is gone, or at least not entirely there. It's been eroded significantly. And at that point, what you can choose to do is to fully commit yourself to what it is that you're doing, because you see that there's still a purpose for you being on this earth, and that in many ways, that loss has become a liberation. You have been liberated by that loss because other people are chained in and confined by trying to make some kind of life's narrative to where their life would be viewed in some positive light. But when you hit a point where no matter what would happen, that's no longer possible, this will actually liberate you to reach heights that you never thought you could do, to reach energy levels and focus and powers that you never thought you could have. Now, I don't recommend initiating this. I don't think this is a good thing. I think it sounds romantic when I say it. I don't think that's a place that you want to go to. But I want to make mention of it here because some of the people watching this, maybe it is you, has been through things that you can't even imagine. And part of your healing will be simply to commit yourself to some larger, greater purpose. And by essentially moving on, what happens is that all those other things that people need, the money that they need, the validation that they need, the comfort that they need, any little bit of comfort or validation or needs, that becomes a chain holding them back. And you can go beyond where they've been because that thing that is holding them back, you don't have that anymore. There's an amazing movie called Gattaca with, I think it is Ethan Hunt. Amazing, amazing movie. And he's been through a lot of pain. He has genetic defects. His brother was genetically engineered, but he himself has genetic defects. And he decides that he wants to go into space. And he does everything from stretching his limbs out in extreme agony to faking his way into a science lab to eventually getting to the point where he could fly away into space on that ship. And he meets his brother again. His brother is suspicious of him for the fact that he's doing this. And his brother comes down to him. He gives him a hard time about it. And they wind up going swimming. They do a race while swimming in the middle of the ocean or middle of some huge lake. And they're swimming out, and Ethan's brother has better genetics than him, and by all rights should be able to beat him and best him. But what winds up happening is that Ethan's character, he winds up actually exceeding him. He goes further, and he keeps swimming, and his brother starts to drown. And as his brother's drowning and he goes back to save his brother, he says, "How are you doing this? How are you doing this?" And he says, "I didn't save anything for the way back." I didn't save anything for the way back. He gave everything for that goal. And that's not a healthy thing for a lot of people. And I don't recommend that to most people. And that's not the level that I'm going to be looking to relate to most people who I work with on. I think that's a little bit out there. But like I said, this is a video that was based on the Joe Rogan idea. This idea that greatness is a sort of craziness that you can put yourself into. And there's no denying that single-minded focus on a goal, when a human being does it, can produce incredible results. When Christopher Columbus goes and sails across the ocean to go find America, and other people have done many similar things, they left nothing back. Nothing. So that is also an area that you can go into. This video is called The Truth About Motivation, not the fiction about motivation, not the cool little, happy little story about motivation, but this is a story about what some people have done to go all the way. In the future, there may be many hard times that fall upon us, and there will be people that will be called upon to give everything they can for the betterment of society and the better